Sweeper Lane. I'd just like to make a couple of points. First of all, in terms of fitness centers, I want to bring to your attention that there's one at Brookdale College. And also, I have the impression that one will eventually be established at Bellworks. And I would also like to second the comments that have been made about transparency. I'm just sitting back there listening to the comments, and it's pretty obvious that there are major problems. In terms of the paper or the tone that was prepared, I think I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to have the opinion, I'll tell my wife that it's flawed and due process wasn't followed. And I think when something like that happens, it's incumbent upon the parties to pull it back, make the amendments, revise it, have a meeting with the rec people like they claim they didn't get to participate. And, you know, someone has to pay for that, but I think that's maybe incumbent on this organization here. And the last thing I would say is fire protection. It's still fermenting in my mind about what's going to happen. I have the impression that it's not adequate right now, and we don't hear anything about it, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Karen Strickland, 26 Hayward Hills. I think it was wonderful that you all appointed a ad hoc recreational committee. I thought that was a really smart thing to do. I thought putting together a survey was very clever and reaching out to the whole town. And so as I was sitting here listening, the most disturbing thing I heard was how they were disregarded. And actually, I was been thinking of this, and the words Mr. Chairman, previous speaker said was due process. And it seems to me that the problem with this thing is that it's being top down. The decisions are being imposed by a group over here who, I don't even know if they live in our town.
I'm sorry, Ken, was there a decision made tonight?
No,
Okay.
no, but this, well, no, it's not a decision.
I guess I'm a little
listing of-
confused when you say that we disregard. I got this
No.
at 5 o'clock. Like,
That's the problem. That's
okay,
the
but
mistake.
that's not us disregarding them.
No, it's.
I mean, I think most of the rec committees would, I've supported them, and in a perfect world that they would have came, so I just feel like
And they
there's
should have been allowed to do their job.
Okay,
So to
okay,
me,
okay.
they should have been allowed to do their job. One of them should have been up here saying, as a committee, we fought it out with all the interest groups in our town. We were the stakeholders. As a committee, we fought it out, and as a committee, we decided this. Okay, now township engineer, figure out the cost, figure out how it's going to work, how you're going to make it. But the decision-making of the priorities and the year 1, year 2, year 7, whatever, that should have been the committee. And I am really upset that the committee wasn't allowed to do its job. Thank you.
Anybody new who hasn't spoken tonight? Well, Carol, you spoke on the ordinance, so you can speak tonight in public too.
Oh, may I?
You may.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay. Carol Balmer, Milltown Road, Homedale. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. The first thing I wanted to ask Fran, was the Rossi included in this report, the recreation open space inventory?
It was certainly referenced. We used it as part of our database, and I believe it's noted in each of the park descriptions what portion of the site is listed on the Rossi. Some of the parks, only a portion of the property are included on the Rossi, and I think there's only 1 or 2 that are not specifically included.
Okay. And how far back did that Rossi go? Because I was under the impression it hasn't been updated in 7 years.
I would have to double check the date.
I think it'd be a good idea, okay? The other thing is, going back to the first gentleman that spoke, I found a flaw as well on question 14, 13, and also top priorities. Question 14, you have 11% say they want an indoor recreational facility, and then You can jump all the way over to the top priorities, and it's listed as number 2 or number 3, I can't see. My glasses aren't even strong enough for this. But I think it's either 2 or 3, okay? So there's something wrong with this picture, obviously. And if perhaps the ad hoc committee had been involved prior to being presented tonight, that flaw would not be there. So that's something that you really should consider. And I think Karen made a very good point that maybe this report should be withdrawn and given a chance for the ad hoc committee to go through it, and then basically accepted and finalized by this committee after the ad hoc committee has done their due diligence, okay? The other thing is that, Fran, who are the stakeholders, per se?
The folks that were interviewed,
That's what everybody's been referring to as stakeholders, yes.
we can provide that list. If it's not included in the book, I don't know if it's included in the front of the report. We can provide the list of the folks that were interviewed.
Okay, what I'm wondering is, what qualifies them as stakeholders? Because I think the taxpayers are the real stakeholders here.
Well, they were, some of them, and Donna, you can help me with the reciting of who they were. Most of it was established by position. I think it was the recreation director, the athletic director at the high school. There were, I don't know if you remember.
The ad hoc committee was consulted for who should be consulted as stakeholders. And we got consensus from participating members for 3 representatives from the board that included the superintendent and the athletic director. We also
Is my time up?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. She has a
Bob Ward, Victor Stevens. We also reached out to representatives of senior programs or activities and swim and tennis center. We tried to get a representative for special needs, but we never could get someone who would respond. And that was kind of our 10th, so we really only got to 9.
Okay. So the sports clubs weren't considered stakeholders?
No, the Recreation Advisory Committee, which is made up of different sports groups, representatives like the HYAA, did have an opportunity to participate in the process, but they weren't stakeholder interviews.
Okay. All right, I just have one more thing. I want to compliment you on something. Can I do that?
Actually, I don't want to take that back. I just want to clarify that. So, there was one HYA representative who was also included as a stakeholder.
But the private sports clubs weren't involved in this?
No, they were not stakeholders.
Thank you very much. Okay. Your executive session tonight. The Cowan Farm is up for perhaps farmland acquisition, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
It'll close in September.
Outstanding. Thank you very much.
And it wasn't even just discussed, the potential committee approved.
It's approved, it's approved, it's approved. It'll close in September.
Yes.
We got it for less money than we thought.
Terry, come on up, Terry.
Jerry Buffalino, 20 Barbera Drive. There was a comment made earlier about population trend, which I thought was very legitimate, and I think the survey spoke to that. Fellow that was on mic. Nationally, we are, I won't say declining, but right now we're static. We're reproducing basically at the same rate as the growth of the population to maintain. Europe has been in decline for years, and they're having a real problem with that. But my point is, if you link this to our spending appetite, especially for the kids, you got to be sensible about it, all right? And I hear a lot of good things being talked about tonight in that regard. We're about to dump $40 million into our school system. I'm not sure that's a great idea, given where the population's going. You know, the baby boom generation had kids, it mushroomed, we had to spend some money on the school systems. The millennials have a different lifestyle. I mean, my daughter moved into the city. They don't really appreciate, you know, moving back by us. Hopefully they will in the future.
Once cars stop driving by themselves, I think they will.
I hope you got it, but
Coming.
it's, you know, this is something to look into because there is a trend right now that's showing that demographers are concerned about that. And I mean, when I was in high school, they actually closed my grammar school. I remember this because there wasn't enough kids coming through the school system at that time because the baby boom thing was passed.
Jerry, I sat on that, the committee that helped, prepare that referendum, and I think if, so many people have come to this town because of the education, it helps our home values in a lot of ways. And I think if you would have toured, some of the science wings, I'm very familiar with the population. I look at it every single year. We're down 600 from 13 years ago. We've had a slight increase in the last 12 months. And I think a big part of that is the success of Bell Works and having a job and putting that, real jobs being created. And I think you are going to see a turnover. I don't think the millennials are, not going to reproduce and not going to have children. They're just doing it 10 years later. So they're doing it in their mid and late 30s, not in their early and mid 20s. So we've sort of missed a generation. So there's a lot of different theories on that. And I, for one, actually think that you're going to see a strong increase in population, not saying that all surrounding towns are going to be facing that. It's going to be the haves and have-nots. And I think strengthening a school and hopefully getting back to the top 5, top 10 is going to be a real positive thing for the community. So again, I think we can all have certain opinions. And again, when you look at capital expenditure and that the actual reality and how that trickles down to your taxable actual dollar, it's not as significant as you might think.
I hope you're right. But and the second point I wanted to make is, I think T&M had mentioned this earlier about comparing this to other places in terms of what we have and what we don't have. And you had made a comment about Woodbridge. I mean, Holmdel is a really special place. I wouldn't compare us to Woodbridge, New Jersey.
No, and I wasn't.
I wouldn't even compare us to Marlboro.
I agree with that.
Because we're different. We are. In a lot of ways. So I hope you guys continue to have that mindset about the quality of life here and the quality of preserving the environment we all came here for. That's, this is a point which, is more about thinking about how you want the town to look 5 or 10 years from now. And
Jerry, I always look at the top 10 towns in the state and compare us to Millburn and Summit and Ridgewood and towns that I think are similar in demographics and similar in makeup. So, I think that's where we strive to. That I guess enhancing the value of the homes comes to schools and community. And those are the things that I look at, how we're getting ranked. And because if there's one thing that millennials are big on and that's the future who buys your homes, is they do that research. Where I think in the past it was more, they want certain facets. And they want convenience. That has been, abominably true. And that's why they're going back to Brooklyn and buying Jersey City. They want certain facets, otherwise they're not coming.
well, that's city living, don't forget, Greg, right? We're different. And most of us want to keep it that way to the extent we can, within reason. So, that's all I have to say, because the trend is there. Keep it within reason in terms of what you want to do. And we don't have unlimited debt capacity. So, we got to keep that within mind, right?
Thank you, Jerry.
I have a last question. It's fast.
Motion to adjourn?